Okay.
All righty. Well, thank you all for attending tonight's meeting of the Golden Speakers Toastmasters. It's July 14th at 7:45. Something I'd like to get back into that we used to do is do our Toastmasters mission, which I just sent in the chat to everyone. So if we could all repeat with me what the mission is. So the mission of a Toastmasters club is to provide a supportive and positive
learning experience
in which members are empowered to develop communication
and
and leadership skills, resulting in greater self-confidence and personal growth.
That's an illustration of why choirs can't sing together on Zoom.
Well, especially just the vocabulary of the mission statement was changed just slightly.
Yeah, it throws me off to read the new one.
Oh, is it a little different?
It is.
Oh, I got it off the TI website.
It's the official.
It used to not say oral communication, and then it said oral communication, and now it looks like they've taken the oral out again. And it's slightly a little different, but anyway, you know, Baptists versus Lutherans, I guess. It's all Christianity, right? Okay, so
we have a speech for tonight. Bob Fogel will be finishing up his level 1. So, yay! We'll also be having a table topic session hosted by yours truly. And we went through our meeting etiquette that Dan just went through, and we are recording today's meeting. And now we can move on with our meeting. Take it away. Who's the Toastmaster for
Rick?
tonight?
Rick.
Oh, all right, take it away, Rick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as, speaking of etiquette, just as a reminder, if you're not speaking, please mute yourself so as not to interfere with the presentation of the meeting. What I'd like to do is introduce the role players, and the timer tonight is Dan Craig. Dan.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, my job as the timer is to keep track of the timing of every speech that occurs, every bit of oral communication, you could say. First, we're going to have a prepared speech by Bob, which will be 5 to 7 minutes. The green light will come on at 5 minutes. I'm going to use the backgrounds tonight. The yellow at 6 minutes and the red at 7 minutes, with 30 seconds remaining at that point. We'll have table topics, which are 1 to 2 minutes. That's green at 1, yellow at 1.5, red at 2. The evaluations are 2 to 3 minutes, which is going to be green at 2, yellow 2.5, red at 3. And each time there's a red in these cases, there's a 30-second grace period at the end. And then the table topics evaluation will have to decide at the time. I think on the schedule it says 3 to 5 minutes, so that would be green, yellow, and red at 3, 4, and 5. I'll record those times and I'll give a report at the end of the meeting.
Thank you, Dan. And I'd like to call on our grammarian, Aaron Russell.
I already forgot I was muted. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. The word of the day, which I have submitted to you all through the chat, is phlegmatic. The definition is unemotional or difficult to arouse. Used in a sentence, Internally, the man was filled with rage, but you would never have known that from his phlegmatic demeanor. So let's try to use phlegmatic during our meeting tonight. As a grammarian, I also have the job of listening for excellent uses of language or turns of phrase, and also language that I find to be maybe incorrect or a little bit awkward, and I will make note of those at the end of today's meeting. Take it away, Mr. Toastmaster.
And now the counter, Jean Symington Craig.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. My job as the counter is to count the filler words that we use that we don't want to use. Words such as well, so, like, but, repeats or double dribbles, anything customized that you do that you insert into places where a pause would be much more effective. I will be giving a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Our general evaluator for tonight is Art Atkinson, and we'll be hearing from him later. And our joke master is Dan Craig, who will tell us a joke later. We have one prepared speech tonight. It's from Bob Fogel. Bob came to Toastmasters due to a hunger of growing personally, never finding satisfaction. In saying, hi, I have arrived. If you're not growing, you're dying. So now I'd like to introduce the evaluator for Bob's speech, Jean Symington Craig.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. As we've mentioned, Bob is doing his final speech requirement for the level 1 presentation mastery. His objective is to present a well-organized, well-delivered speech where he has spent some time researching a topic. He can be speaking about a new topic or a known topic at a deeper level. The speech can be humorous, informational, or any style that he chooses. Everything should work well together. And we look forward to hearing how that works with Bob. His title is Monuments. I'll hand it back to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're on mute, but Rick.
Excuse me, I'm recently back to the group meeting. Do you introduce Bob at this point, or do I introduce him?
What are we doing, guys? Are we having the evaluator introduce? We used to do that.
That's the way we used to do it. I don't know if things have changed.
You know, I think we switched back, Rick, because of the toast. So ideally the sequence is, as Toastmaster, you introduce me as the evaluator, and then I hand back to you, and then you give that piece that you gave to kind of, get the audience all engaged and go from there. So we did it a little bit backwards, but that's all right.
Yeah, I agree. Usually the evaluator gives their speech, what the speech is, and then the Toastmaster does the introduction and then gives it away to the speaker.
So we've moved it a little bit, Rix. Sorry for not telling you that.
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Bob Fogel. The title of his speech, Monuments, Should They Stay or Go? Bob.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters. Thank you for accompanying my speech this evening. Tonight's speech is simply monuments. What a monument is basically just a structure or a building or just an erection of a building. Excuse me, sorry. Basically, We have had monuments built since years and years ago, thousands of years ago, as old as 2500 BC with the pyramids. Picture this. If you were asked today to construct a monument, would you build out of love or hate or pain? Keep in mind that the monument that you are going to erect is going to be on the world stage. October 4th, 2015, the Des Moines Register and the USA Today put their crosshairs on a particular monument of a Confederate soldier down in Keokuk, Iowa. And the inscription underneath the monument is basically nothing. However, it rubs people wrong and they want that thing dismantled. It was erected in 1912 by the Women Regiment of Corps. They put it there for the unnamed soldier. So it basically has no meaning of anger or hatred towards anyone in particular. It's just a monument. In September 2017, Bloomfield, Iowa, again, the Des Moines Register came after the local residents there. There's 3 stones set there with plaques commemorating an incident happened with the Confederate soldiers and Iowans. Simply, what had happened was 12 Confederate soldiers cloaked themselves with Union uniforms. They simply crossed the state lines of Iowa to wreak havoc and murdered 3 Iowans. One would think, where is the white supremacy that they keep talking about? But little do they know that white supremacy did not come into play until 1896. That was 31 years after the war. Excuse me. The Des Moines Register recently had just put an article out there on July 5th, 2020, exactly. Her name is Christine Novus. She runs the Seeding of Sovereignty. And I quote her demands. The state of Iowa should remove all monuments, murals, and dictations of any sort from the state of Iowa. And her direct quote for Norbus simply stated, because it hurts my feelings and it makes me uncomfortable. The publication of the 1906 dedication to the monuments of the Iowa soldiers was written in there and it's been told by ex-Lieutenant Governor Benjamin Gue. He wrote the account of an actual witness named John McEverly. John, he witnessed the life and death of his fellow Union soldiers in Andersonville. Close to 13,000 soldiers died in Andersonville, 914 which were unmarked soldiers, unmarked graves. The Confederates liked to taunt the Union soldiers, and they would try to entice them, come over to our side. You'll have food, you'll take a bath, you new clothes, just come fight, come join with us. But if you look on the statue that we erected down there, the Iowa statue in particular, it simply states death before dishonor. And as every day they'd come in there, they would come in there and say, come have food, come have rest. No, sir, they would say. We would rather be carried out by the maggots through the slots of your brigade. That's a direct quote. As the death angel walked around in their midst, one morning you heard one of the boys, "Mama, Mama, Ma, Ma." And just like that, the deadly silence overtook him. When next time you ponder upon a monument in the state of Iowa, if you don't remember anything else, remember the silence. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Bob. Mr. Timer, could you please time 2 minutes so we could all write our evaluations?
That's 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Timer. And now I'd like to introduce our general evaluator for this evening, Art Atkinson.
Taking myself off mute. Jean, as evaluator, do you need a bit more time? You're muted at the moment. Are you
Okay,
ready,
good.
Jean, or would you like
Yes,
some more time?
yes, I think I'm ready to go, actually. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator and fellow Toastmasters, and particularly Bob. Just so great for him to be finishing up this level and with such a topical subject. What I'm going to mention is, in terms of things that Bob excelled at, in my opinion, he was trying to get those Zoom gestures in there, which we're all working with, but I appreciated that he was trying to work with the space that we have. He gave specific dates around Confederate monuments. He talked about white supremacy coming, 1896. He identified specific and gave names to specific soldiers who had stories, either from Iowa or just in general. These were all very enticing pieces of information that gave his speech more specificity, interest. I would just suggest that he include, when he mentions those, the resources that he's using. So where were these dates and this information coming from? If it was from articles from historical societies, or just where did those come from? Because otherwise I don't know, a date could be anything. So that would be a suggestion there, to nail those down. The quote was excellent. He had a quote from a woman who's very specific about taking monuments down because she just feels uncomfortable, which I presume Bob was telling us he thought that was a little extreme. Didn't say that, but I was thinking that was what he was trying to say. What he might want to work on, I would say, of course, no need to apologize. Somewhere a little bit at the beginning was apologizing. Audience usually doesn't need to hear that, or is okay with you. It was a little confusing on who they was. There was the people taunting each other to come back, and there was a number of theys in there, and maybe I just lost the thread, but I was trying to figure out who they was and which side was they on. So a little bit there could clarify. Instead of using they constantly, just make sure you throw in, so the Confederate soldiers were saying this, and just help the audience understand a little bit better. I'd also, my big suggestion would be an organizing statement at the beginning. So perhaps he could have said, you talk about the monument down in Keokuk to the unknown soldier, and then help the audience by saying something like, tonight, excuse me, tonight I want to explain why the significance of historical monuments transcends particular events and speaks more to the universal humanity that we all share. Something that lets me know what are we going to be doing here, and maybe what's Bob's angle on it, and why is he bringing these points in? What is the position that he is supporting? And then I have places to hang my hat on. So that would be my main suggestion there. So I could just have a little bit more of a roadmap. Otherwise, love Bob's speech, the drama, the angle of the soldier at the end, and finishing with the silence, and then silence, very, very strong.
Thank you, Madam Evaluator. Bob, you're lucky. You got evaluation by one of the pros. Now I'd like to call on, well, first of all, Mr. Timer, did the evaluator qualify?
You're on mute, Dan.
We'll have one more evaluation before we vote, but Jean did qualify.
Good. So the next section of our meeting would be the table topics improvisational speaking section. And for that, we have table topics master Aaron Russell to ask the questions. Are you ready to go, Aaron?
I was born ready, Art.
More than ready. You are champing at the bit.
All right.
So, you have questions for tonight's theme?
I do, yes. So our theme for tonight is Home Sweet Home. So I have questions related to that theme. Who is jumping at the chance to speak for?
Oh, Aaron's internet froze for a moment.
Uh-oh. Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. You'll be happy to know that I'm trying to change internet providers as we speak, so I finally gave up on MediaCom. Anyway, who would like to go first?
I will speak.
Okay. Thank you, Art.
I presume you have a question.
I do, yes. I'm trying to pick which one. All right, Art. If you've ever seen the movie The Wizard of Oz, you may remember the closing line of the movie where Dorothy, back in Kansas once more, exclaims to her family that there's no place like home, which has over time turned into a pretty well-known phrase. Art, what do you think this phrase, there's no place like home, what does it mean to you?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Fellow Toastmasters, guests, and viewers in all parts of the internet. There is no place like home, a bromide that almost everyone agrees with, has to do with the development of familiarity and the fact that with a long time residing in the same place, you can make it fit. You can either decide to just put up with inconveniences and misfit, put up with things that are in the wrong place or features of the home which you don't like, or you can work to change them to more to your liking because there's time to do it. There's no place like home refers to the experiences of shared family life with those that you love and all the associations that come up. There's no place like home can actually develop very quickly, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you get to stay there. I spent a winter in the western mountains of Oregon, a few miles from the ocean, about 20 miles from the Pacific Ocean, taking care of a ranch for a friend for the winter, which meant September through the following June. And it is a part of Oregon where it rains from September through the middle of the following June. And it was the first time I'd ever experienced being in almost total wilderness. We were surrounded on every side by national forest. There was miles of forest in every direction. And when I was done with the term of caretakerhood and had to leave because the owner wanted to come and enjoy the summertime on his property, I was really heartbroken because I had developed that no place like home feeling about his property. It's the only time I've had that kind of caretaker heartbreak experience. So no place like home rings true even for those who are transient. At least in my case it did. Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Art. I can always count on you to start us off with a bang. Who would like to go next? I think everyone's going to have to go at some point, so you might as well get it out of the way.
It's a great topic.
I'll go.
Eeny, meeny. All right, thank you, Rick. Rick, do you consider yourself a homebody? And if so, or if not, why do you think you are that way?
Could I have another question?
Okay. If something needs fixing in your house, would you rather save some money and do it yourself or hire it out to somebody?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. I always like to say I'm going to do things myself, mostly for the desire to save money. Unfortunately, I'm the world's worst procrastinator. So when I say I'm going to do something, when I say I'm going to fix it, that's no guarantee it's going to be fixed anytime soon. In fact, the odds are it's just going to languish for a long, long time before it gets fixed. And I come up with all sorts of excuses, all sorts of rationalizations why it isn't fixed. But the plain truth of the matter, I just procrastinate too much. It's a big challenge for me to organize even simple day-to-day tasks around the house. For example, in my house now, there's 2 or 3 things that need to be fixed. And these things are presenting major inconveniences to us. The fact that they're presenting major inconveniences have no influence on my desire to fix them. It doesn't make me do it any faster. I just put up with the inconvenience. I think of ways to make the inconvenience less inconvenience. If there's one thing I could improve about my personality, is to do things now. I do save money by having things fixed. I save even more money by never fixing them. But it does present a problem sometimes. So I guess you've led me into bearing my soul, one of the biggest challenges for me. But I do at least state I'm going to fix things myself. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Rick. I think, yeah, I'm definitely guilty of procrastinating that kind of stuff as well. I think we're all guilty of doing that to some extent. Speaking of procrastinating, who would like to go next? All right, thank you, Jean. All right, Jean. Jean, home, the word home can mean different things to different people. When people ask you, where's home? What do you usually tell them? And why?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master and fellow Toastmasters and viewers at home. We get to say that now. I have lived in this house with my best friend, Dan Craig, who I also happen to be married to, for the last 20 years. This is our 20-year anniversary in this house. I've lived a lot of places. I've mentioned in the past, I went to 5 different elementary schools by the time I was in 6th grade. A lot of moving around. My dad was in sales. Didn't get too attached to any place in particular. I would say at this point, though, that if someone asked me, where's home? I would say right here where I'm living, because it is our home. And Dan is in it, and our pups are in it. So my heart value is there. I have to chuckle at Rick's descriptions, because with all this staying at home, I definitely find myself, even though it's my home, trying to figure out how to walk around and make things less inconvenient, just because you get tired of trying to fix stuff up when you can't go anywhere or do anything, and you can't take things out and throw them out. Right now, I would say that I really like my home. Dan is a great fixer-upper. Dan is not like Rick and me at all. Dan gets in and he just fixes stuff. It's just great. So we do save money having Dan here. Dan, yay, that's a good thing. That's a positive in Dan's column. So I guess I'd say this is our home. Dan is a great person to be in it with me. Our dogs love us, and we just are a happy family in this home that I will call home. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Jean.
Mm-hmm.
Who Who would like to go next?
Bob.
We got
Bob.
Dan or Bob
Bob.
or Veda.
Or
Veda, would you like
Veda's raising his hand. Ooh.
to? All right.
Hi, we better take me because my internet starts to go a little wibbly wobbly at this time of night. So before it goes out, and if it's really not working, Aaron or somebody give me a signal, like it's not
Okay.
working. You're reading me fine now, it looks like.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Great.
All right, Veda. Veda, would you rather have a larger house with a smaller yard or property, or a larger property with a smaller house on it?
Thank you, Mr. Toastmasters, Mr. Table Topic Master. Toastmasters and any viewers who see this in the future. Well, Aaron, thank you for that great question. I've lived in small houses or small spaces, small rooms, single rooms, and I've lived in large houses. I definitely prefer large houses because I have a lot of stuff. I was raised by a long line of pack rats. And so I tend to accumulate things. It's not that I like to have the things so much as just the moment when you realize that you should get rid of it. The next day after that is exactly when you're going to need that item. So I feel that I should never get rid of anything. And now I'm faced with multiple storage containers because right now, as large as my apartment is, I have a larger apartment now than I used to have. There's never enough room. So I have a small warehouse, a large warehouse, and a couple of other storage containers to have my stuff. Probably it would be nice to have a large property, but large properties come with a huge downside. I remember when I moved to Fairfield 30 years ago, the real estate agent said, "Oh, that yard's not too big." And she really minimized it, but believe me, that was a huge yard. Now, Aaron, I can see you, and I can't see the timer. So if you could give me a signal when we get to red, okay? Raise your hand when we get to red. Okay, it looks like we're at red anyway. So my point is that if you have a large property, you'll have a large yard. If you have a large yard, you'll have to mow it. So therefore, I would much rather have a large house.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Veda. Bob?
Yes. Ready, Aaron.
Bob. We want Bob.
I'm hearing Bob.
Yeah,
Yes.
Bob.
I think I do better at unplanned speeches than planned speeches.
You want both kinds.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, Aaron, I'm ready.
Bob, would you rather buy a less expensive house that's a fixer-upper and remodel it into your dream home, or buy a little more expensive house that's move-in ready? don't have to tamper with it much.
Thank you for the question this evening. Well, fellow Toastmasters, I've had experience in both realms. The exciting part about buying a fixer-upper is there can be all kinds of cool things that as a young boy, as a young man, were interesting and finding. One house in particular that I moved into here in Washington, I had bought it. It had been boarded up solid for close to 40 years. And when the people left, all they simply did was lock the door. So when I acquired the house, it'd be like walking into one of your houses. There was still fruitcake in the closet that no one ever ate. And it was still dated 1931. It was the funniest thing ever. And my daughter found gum that was, I don't know, 30, 40 years old. And we always called her Princess Gumball, so she ate the gum. So that was fun. And I found a lot of antiques and everything. I worked construction during the day, poured concrete all day, and then I remodeled all night. And then it took me about a year, and I put my whole family, 5 kids, wife, cat, dog, all the rest of us, and we moved in this lovely home. It was a showcase, and it came from nothing because the city wanted to tear it down, and it turned out just great and had a lot of history behind it. I acquired it when no one thought I would ever acquire it, and so it was a lot of fun. I've done a lot of flip houses throughout my years, but now at my age, I live in a condominium. I don't mow, I don't remove snow, I don't do anything other than what I want to do. And sometimes I'll just sit hibernated for a couple, 3 days and all winter or longer and do nothing. So that's always enjoyable. I kind of like this stage. Only person I got to clean up is after myself or my dog. The place is probably a little bigger than I need. It's got 2,700 square feet. I mean, how much does a single guy need? But hey, it's my palace, I guess you would say. So every room has its space, or has its place, I should say. So yes, I like this kind of living. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
We're at 8:31. We're done at 8:32. I think we move on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, now.
I think I'm supposed to take over again.
Okay.
We have an evaluator for table topics, Rick Starr. Rick, are you prepared to start evaluations now?
First, we have to vote.
Oh, and before we can vote, we have to know who qualifies.
Right.
Well, Rick has to give his evaluations before we can vote.
No. Voting first and then evaluation.
For the table topic speaker.
Oh, for table topics.
Speaker. Right.
I'll read out the list of the qualifying speakers, if I may.
You may.
Rick, Jean, Veda, and Bob. Rick, Jean, Veda, and Bob.
I spoke also.
You did not qualify. You spoke, but you spoke a little too long.
Or you want us to really rub it in, or what?
Well, I discovered a way to have a technical problem that prevented me from seeing the timer cards.
Oh.
So I thought that I was going pretty long, and you just confirmed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've been pretty good with timing. Okay, so who do we send this to? Rick?
Art.
Rick, yeah.
Rick.
Oh, Rick, yeah.
To Rick. Jean, Bob, who? Rick, and who?
Veda and Rick.
Dan didn't go.
He was the only one. Well, besides me, I guess. He snaked his way out of it this time.
So having now voted for best table topic speaker, we can have our evaluation of table topics. We have, I think, 5 speakers, right? Myself, Rick, Jean, Beta. That's 4. Did I miss one?
Well, and I don't know if Rick is going to evaluate himself. I guess
You
he
mentioned
can't.
Bob. He also
I just
did
had a
topic.
great evaluation from us.
So let's go with 3, 4, 5 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes.
It's pretty long, Art. You want to go, I mean, 3 to 4 would be good. If you only got 4.
Yeah, what do we usually, 45 seconds a person? Is that...
Usually it's 2 to 3 minutes for an evaluator. And so, and 4 is completely, you can do that, but just for ease.
Okay, Rick, can you,
So how much do I have? 3 to 4?
yeah, 3 to 4.
You can do that, 4 people, can't you?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Most of them will be on me anyway. So. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Art's table topic was, or just a riff on There's No Place from Home from The Wizard of Oz. Art's speech was kind of divided into 2 parts. One, just a general description of what There's No Place Like Home is, and then some experiences, some of his own experiences of taking care of a ranch in the Northwest and how he got so attached to it. And he really experienced no place like home, even though he was only there a short period of time. I thought Art's speech was wonderful. As Dan pointed out, it could have been cut a little short. And one suggestion I have is to make the first part of the speech a little shorter, the abstract part, and you go into the definitions of what that means, and keep the second part, your own personal experiences, at about the same length. I think people relate more to stories from other people, and personal experiences are a great way to tell a story. Jean's topic was, what does home mean to her? And she said as a child, she moved around a lot, but didn't get too attached to where she lived. She moved around so much. And the second part of the speech was really from her heart. Jean expressed how much she loved her home, loved her husband, and loved her 2 dogs. And the whole speech was from the heart. An excellent speech as usual. And I really appreciated the fact that she rated Dan highly on his ability to fix things around the house. So Dan, you have at least one thing in your favor. That's good. Beta gave a speech on, would you rather have a larger house and a smaller property, or larger property and a smaller house? And he confessed that he came from a long line of pack rats. And so he needs as much space as possible. He said he started out in a fairly large house, and even now he lives in a fairly large apartment, and it just isn't enough space. So I thought it was an excellent speech, a lot of humor in it, and I give him points for being very honest in it. And the last speech was Bob. His whole speech was about his own personal experience, how the house he's in now, how we, I don't know if it was the first house you were in or one of the first houses, was a complete fixer-upper. I admire Bob's industry and working all day, working full-time in construction, and coming home and working all night at fixing up the house. He showed a lot of pride in that, and a lot of satisfaction in providing a house for his family and doing it with his own 2 hands. Bob, you're a self-made man, you're a self-sufficient individual, and I really, really admire that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Rick. I'm getting back to the agenda. Time for the timer to tell us which evaluators qualified. We know Jean did.
Jean qualified and Rick qualified.
Very good. So we would vote now for the best evaluator. And that vote would be sent to Rick privately.
I don't know. It just feels funny. Rick's a contestant. I don't know. I voter fraud here. There could
Oh,
be
you can
something.
trust me, Jean.
I know. If it were anyone else.
Well, we can have him send it to me.
I just haven't quite figured out how to do this, you know, without getting too weird about it. But
So should we send it to Rick or Art?
I just said it to me. There's voter fraud in every election. It'll work out.
Okay, Rick, tell us when you have all of the votes in that you think you're going to get.
Should be 5 or 6 votes.
Chicago voting rules, vote early and often.
I think I got it.
And there would be time then for the reports for this evening's meeting. I'd like to hear from the timer first, Dan Craig. Dan, would you tell us what the times were?
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Bob's speech was 6:32. Table topics, Art, 3 minutes, 10 seconds. Rick, 1:53. Jean, 2:16. Veda, 2:30. Bob, 2:29. Evaluators, Jean, 3:25. Rick, 3:29. That's my report.
Thank you.
Wow.
As grammarian, Aaron, would you give us your report on this evening?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I did not hear anybody use the word of the day, phlegmatic, including myself, so I can't exactly pass on any judgment on anybody. Bob had a good phrase that he used in his introduction, which was given by Rick. He said, "If you're not growing, you're dying." I like that. It's a wonderful phrase, and also just a nice use of visual language. And I also liked during Veda's table topic, he said that he was raised by a family of pack rats. I just love the image that I get of that. Just, I don't know, just a house full of stuff just thrown every which way.
Rats.
Yeah.
Full of rats.
Mm-hmm. And that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Grammarian. Jean is the odd counter. Do you have a report for us?
Yes, Mr. General Evaluator, although I must humbly say that I was extremely phlegmatic on this one. I kept looking down and I'm going, oh, I'm supposed to be doing that. And I came up for air briefly when Bob was doing his table topics, and I got a couple of ahs and a couple of so's. Other than that, I was pretty much paying attention. I don't think I heard filler words tonight, but I absolutely know that I was coming in and out of consciousness a bit. I will try to do better. I'm a little out of practice on the ah counter. Either that or we're really getting good. So there's not as much to note.
We'll say that we got really good.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not aware of much for the word either.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now comes the much awaited moment when Dan Craig will entertain us with a joke. Unfortunately, it's limited to a 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. I'm going to give you two 30-second jokes. I hope it works out that way. The first one is about a guy named Pete who has been drinking in a bar. He knows he's had way too much, so he decides to walk home. It's really late. It's like 4 a.m. And he gets stopped by a policeman who says, "What are you doing out this time of night, buddy?" And Pete says, "Well, I'm on my way to a lecture." And the cop said, "Who on earth would give a lecture at this time of night?" And Pete said, "My wife."
Yeah.
My other 30-second joke, if I'm still going to hit that time. A husband and wife at the end of a long day were sitting in bed. The husband started complaining a bit. He said, "You know, I feel so old. I look in the mirror, my face is wrinkly, my body sags all over, and look at this gut on me. I just feel really old." And the wife said nothing. The husband turns to her and says, "Maybe you could say something to make me feel better about myself." She said, "Well, honey, you've still got your eyesight."
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. G.
Your skills of observation are still in their prime. Now, as a general evaluator, I'll speak briefly. We had two evaluations this evening, one from Jean, one from Rick. Jean, as a master evaluator, praised what was praiseworthy about Bob's presentation, including the hand gestures and the movements, the use of variety in his vocal presentation, in particular that very powerful ending with silence. She zeroed in on the details that Bob had left out that made it confusing sometimes to know where we were or what aspect of the monument issue we were dealing with, and his choice to not let us know which were his sources. So she made specific suggestions, always actionable. Specific suggestions are the valuable thing to come out of an evaluation. Rick, in evaluating the table topics presentations, had a recommendation for me, as well as a description of what I did. He had a description of each of the other presenters. He didn't have, as I recall, a recommendation for Veda. Didn't have a recommendation for everybody, but the recommendations he did have for me were right on target, and I remember them. That's my evaluation of the evaluators. I'm turning it back over to you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Now I'd like to present the meeting awards. For Best Speaker, Bob Fogel. For Best Table Topics, Rick Starr. And for Best Evaluator, one of the best evaluators I've ever heard, Jean Symington Craig. And one thing I want to say about Jean's evaluation is something she does in all her evaluations. She always manages to bring in positive comments and ways to make the speech better. So hats off to Jean. Good job.
Oh.
And now I'd like to turn it back over to our president, Aaron.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Thank you for another very successful meeting, all my fellow Toastmasters. Couple notes that I'd like to make. The Toastmaster magazine, have people been reading it? It's now only online, which I don't mind. I like reading the e-edition. Have people been getting it? I guess Bob specifically, since you're a newer member, have you been getting the Toastmaster magazine?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, you're missing out.
And the email sent from you, Aaron, or is it?
There's a way to get it sent directly from TI, Toastmasters International. I thought that they sent that to all the members.
You should get an email notification saying it's available with a link to it.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll maybe have to look through there again.
Okay.
You could also go on the TI website, Toastmasters.org, and look there. I have to look at it myself, but it should be up there for resources or, publications or something. And you can go in and look at past ones too. I mean, you can really binge watch Toastmaster magazine and they're very interesting.
They're excellent. I mean, they're awesome articles for anyone who's interested in developing their communication skills. I've tried to get into the habit of posting an article on our Facebook page, just because I think that they're so great and so applicable to regular life. What's up?
I just went into TI's website and it's one of the top tabs. So as soon as you log in, over towards the right, there's magazine, and you can just go in and start looking at stuff. Yep. Oh, look at all this.
One thing can I share?
Go ahead, Bob.
On my speech, I know everybody commented that I didn't have my resources, but I had it all on paper form. I just didn't know how to get it in there. So I mean, it's all documented. But one thing might be interesting is this particular book was the soldier that I was sharing about, the Iowa monuments. If you can read, and so that's where I read it out of this book, that quote that I quoted you. More interesting, there's not a book like this anywhere in the world. What this simply is, it's dated 1906, and you can read it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Interesting.
So,
It's an old book.
Old book, yep. And who that Cunningham is, and who he was one of the senators of Iowa. And it came in my possession, that house that you had asked earlier, Rick, that house that I remodeled with my family. When I told you I walked in and opened the door, that book was in there.
No kidding. Wow.
So that's how I got possession for it.
That's great.
Thanks for sharing, Bob. Jean.
Just so we could just brainstorm real quick here, it looks like we have just a little bit, maybe a minute or two, on how Bob could slide in his references in the middle of the speech or while he's giving these pieces, because it doesn't even have to be a full sentence. Does anyone want to give an example?
I'm interested in this too, because my next talk is going to be this last one in level 1. So I'm doing the same thing. I have to get various sources. But I was assuming I'd say something like, according to Nature magazine, the state of the coral reefs today is da-da-da-da-da-da. Just use little phrases like according to, or do a statement and say, as reported in such and such.
Yeah, that's when I did my research speech, that's how I did it. I think that's the most natural way.
And I think in this project, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think in this project, it's also the case that you gather your various sources and you don't have to cite them all. But it is part of your project to gather many sources, and then you would cite a few just to demonstrate that you've looked at various sources. Is that right?
Given that Bob actually has this book, he could have it on the lectern with him and just pick it up and wave it at the appropriate moment, or show the spine of the book.
I think that would have been great to bring that up, even one sentence during the speech about how you found the book and all that. I think it's a wonderful story.
It'd be a nice visual just to do what you did just now and just open up the book and show us.
Okay.
When we used to do research or topic, because I have not done this one yet in Pathways. It's also my next project. So I need to compare it to the way we were instructed to do it with the competent communicator. But in the competent communicator, the idea is that your audience, if they wanted to, could go look up look up your source. So if you said, according to Nature magazine, March 2013, the coral reefs, yada, yada, like, so that it takes just a little, a couple extra words to make it specific. And at the same time, it really boosts your credibility because you're saying, I'm not making this up. And I'm very willing to tell you where I found this, and you can go take a look at it yourself. And this is on top of, the visual that everyone's liking about this very unique book and having a little story around it to the degree that you could. I mean, you have to make decisions based on how much time you have left. But this whole thing about sources is, that if that's what you're wanting to do, you're wanting to be specific and you want to show variety. And I don't think it hurts to just give a source everywhere because Bob Fogel saying it certainly has value, but, Albert Einstein saying it, who you reference, has a whole different value, so. Anyway, you'll want to have that, Bob, because I know you like impromptu speeches, but so prepared speeches is going to be and you're very good, you're very good. So you're just going to learn how to really build that strength of what you're saying and your message by drawing on the quotes and drawing on the other resources. So anywho, so you can say, according to that, as I found in yada, 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 just little lead-ins. That's all it takes.
Okay. So I got one question. So when I shared that Norbis lady, it was in the Des Moines Register, July 2020 on the whatever it was, the 15th or something. Was that good enough?
Yeah, that was good because you gave, you said, and I heard you say the Des Moines Register several times. And so just add the date and the, month and date or whatever, just so, because it really shows like, wow, Bob is being careful. He's being meticulous. He's really getting the facts in order. And he's showing us that he's doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're running a little short on time. I had one more thing that I'd like to bring up. People are fine with that. First Fridays, so as members who have been around for a while know that last year we did quite a bit with them. Of course, right now with us being in our COVID-induced quarantine, they're trying to get creative. They've done, I think last month they did a virtual art studio presentation of some sort, like promoting different artists in the area. I've reached out to them to see if there's anything that we can do with them. And they were asking if we'd be open to maybe doing like I know we had talked about maybe going away from Facebook Live, but some sort of broadcast event where maybe we have like someone give a speech on the value of Toastmasters or something creative to try to promote the club at their First Fridays event. If people are into that idea, or if people have other suggestions of how we can try to use the First Fridays event, which I think is very popular. A lot of people are very into it.
How do they present it?
Is this run? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Is it a Facebook event?
I believe it was. I can double check, but I believe that last month that's what they did.
So they have different presenters or tours at certain time slots. Is that what they do?
Mm-hmm.
Is this run by the district?
The First Fridays?
Yeah.
Or what do you mean the district?
I forget the district number, but we're
No,
part
he
of
just
the
means
No.
the Fairfield First Fridays.
This is the
It's been
Fairfield First Fridays Art Walk. Yeah.
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 I thought it was a Toastmasters event. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Yeah, let's see.
Well,
I think
if
it
we,
was Facebook. What were you saying, Jean?
I'm just wondering if just to play with it a little bit, if we wanted to sign up for a, rapid fire table topics thing and people could, is that how it would work? I mean, someone from the audience could raise their hand and say, I wanted,
I'm not, I don't know if there's audience participation or not. And maybe,
Yeah.
I think generally you'd have.
You just went on mute, Dan. You went on mute. The host put you on mute. Oh, that's you, Dan. Sorry.
You're just too fast for me, Jean. I was reaching for the mute button.
Okay.
Generally, I think in this sort of thing, you've got somebody broadcasting. You can have a meeting going on, but anyone who's watching is probably just limited to comments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those little bubbles and it kind of
texted comments.
Yeah, it just kind of bubbles up and everything. Well, I think although we're concerned about doing this on a regular basis with our meetings, but if we wanted to talk about it, we could think up some kind of fun rapid fire activity that we could do. We could, take, whoever raises their hand answers the question from the previous person, and then that person asks the question of the next, some sort of fun gamey thing, and all laugh and have a good time. And maybe that would encourage people to, to work on it. It'd be easy to put together too.
You could start and end with Aaron giving just a little blurb about Toastmasters and what it's good for. And then now we're going to do this table topics round robin, and then it's over. And thank you for seeing a sample of part of a Toastmasters meeting. And Toastmasters is a mutually supportive and positive learning environment.
And we could look up some there's a lot of creative table topics things that people have done. So we could, sort of have fun with that. I'm trying to think of something that would look goofy too. Like maybe you have to do it totally with a straight face. You can't smile at all, or with one eye shut.
Maybe our first exposure shouldn't be goofy. Maybe the second time through we could be goofy.
Well, some entertaining kind of challenge. You have to hold your left ear or something, or you have to work in your left ear into your topic or something, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's a great idea. I think the idea of having it as fun as possible is that's what's going to attract people who
exactly
see it for a few seconds. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
think it's being handed to us as a recruiting tool.
Yeah, yeah, it's good. So, Aaron, Aaron's our vice president of PR as well as our president. So,
I just wanted to get some initial interest from you guys. I was going to talk to them a little bit more. I can talk to them about some of the suggestions that you guys have, and get a better idea on what their thoughts are for.
Good. Go for it.
and how much time it would be, you know. I mean, as charming and as humorous as we all are, it might get a little boring after, you know, X amount of minutes. Not Bob. Bob's always entertaining, but the rest of us, perhaps. That was a shout out to you, Bob, by the way.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that sounds good, Aaron.
Gotta keep everybody rolling.
And
Well,
that's,
we're just different glasses next time too.
oh. All right. Well, thank you all for a very successful meeting tonight. We can stick around if people want to keep chatting, but I apologize for going a little bit over. Have yourselves a wonderful evening, and we'll see you all next week.